Hello everyone. This is not a story for the faint of heart. Today, we will be stepping into the darkness of the most gruesome cases, where evil not only exists, but also leaves bloody and haunting traces. This is Real Gruesome Murder Cases, a series of true stories about murders that made the whole world shudder. If you are ready to face the cold truth and the gruesome corners of humanity, come with me to delve deeper into each case, off with their heads. Yes, Mother. I sigh into the line, wrapping the infamous cord around my finger. Of course, I'm fine. What? No, it's not like I'm in the States. This is Britain, God damn it. Mother, no, I think you should lie down for a while. Call Dad as well. He'd fancy a visit from you, I'm sure. And just like that, my hand smashes back on the receiver. Blood, Britain, eh? Who could ever have imagined Olivia, from the apartment up above, would pursue law in England? Well, for starters, certainly not her. A buggy sweeps by my rusted telephone box as I take a single drag on the cigarette laid before me in its little red tin box. Rainwater nearly splashes up on my impeccable outfit, the poor thing. I shake my fist at the driver, but there's no use. The lad's already way off into the distance. What would the world be without Britain? Perhaps every world has some sort of Britain as well. Little men in their fancy outfits, always circling each other with arguments. At least they're nothing like that bloody American man. What was his name again? Nixon, was it? Yes. Terrible, terrible people doing amazing things. I've always found it fascinating, you know. My red kitten heels splash against more rainwater. I curse myself silently for not bringing that little red umbrella with me. Perhaps I could pick it up on my way to the office. Their stares don't avoid me as I run by. I can catch those disgusting men from the corner of my eye, all staring. It's not as if I'm putting on a show, is it? Still, I can only imagine what they see. A French woman, plush red lips against fair skin. I even tried to wear my longer crimson dress today. Turns out, that effort proved fruitless. I jump into the office, gasping as the heat blasts me behind the wooden panels. In the background, I can hear softer jazz clashing with news reports from the telly, as if warring between each other. What is it this time? I ask Bonnie, the sharp woman sitting at the desk, or as she urges me to call her, Bonbon. Ridiculous name. Her bleached curls pull up nicely against her dark skin and bright yellow dress. She swears it's from that damn swinging Britain stage we're going through right now. She shrugs, leaning over to stare at the Pixel-E screen. Those Beetle kids are going to broke up, she snaps back, leaning into the plush sides of her chair. The corners of her mouth edge up slightly as she stares at the messily done bun in my hair. How do you get your hair like that? Oh, I grin back. picking up the large manila folder before her. Do shut up. What's our next case? It's hard to say. Bonbon plucks a pen from her container, absent-mindedly scribbling on her schedule paper. They ordered us to take up all the spots for the month. All of them? My eyebrows shoot up as I feel my face grow red with anger. The audacity. Who do they think they are to order us around? There are nearly 1 million clients in London, all looking for lawyers. And yet this flash bastard thinks he's important enough to take all her attention. This is the case. She heaves more mundane folders toward me, all packed to the brim with paper. I know. It's a lot. You might even need to help us with this one, I tease. Not my style. Bonnie slumps back. Olivia, some of us girls aren't meant to be smart. We're just supposed to smile and look pretty. Some of us don't get enough funds to go to Oxford either, or travel back and forth from France. I ignore the dig. It's odd how Bonnie and I see ourselves as adults, despite both of us only just being able to drink. Right when I graduated from Oxford, I got accepted into this law firm, the best one in London. Sometimes I wonder if I'd even stay here without the job. Britain is just so dreary. It's quite depressing, especially at first glance. Maybe that's all it deserves. My heels clack down the hallway as I desert the drab lobby. When I finally reach my own personalized office, I feel as if I'm at home. I strut to the opalescent gramophone occupying the corner, placing a thin record upon it. Half my collection is sonata, while the other is all that new style of rock. I believe those critics have begun to call it punk. Whatever the case, it's the only connection I have to my generation. I often find myself discarded in this new, modern era. People believe there is to be so much more, but I can't possibly imagine what could come next. I sit at my small desk, shuffling through the papers that have been so graciously presented to me without haste. How does one look through these documents with such excitement, anyhow? I prefer the thrill of the courtroom to the dual sensation of passing through files and archives. Nevertheless, one needs to begin a task for them to finish it. After nearly 2 hours of reading, Bonnie returns to my office with a cup of tea and the person I'd least like to see right now. Darcy places a hand onto my desk, snatching the tea from Bonnie's hand. I thought you'd like some tea, she whispers in an accusatory manner. I see, I groan. So much so that you grabbed it straight from Bonnie's hand. Darcy snaps her long white fingers. Leave, pest. Make yourself useful and sort through the files. I all read. Our boss pulls her emerald-colored nails through her platinum blonde hair. Who's to say I didn't mess them up while you were wasting time? Bonnie's gum snaps as she pulls it back in from its bubble. Course, miss, as her thin legs carry her off down the drab walls. Darcy smashes her fists on my desk before traveling to the gramophone, looking down with distaste. I find all parts of your music taste disgusting. Thanks, I mumble, returning to my work. Now that you've given me some tea and made fun of my music, you can leave. I simply can't figure out how you work with this rock in the background. First of all, I sigh, throwing down some more papers to the floor. Darcy's eyes widen, but I only shrug. There's a method to my madness. They taught me some amazing things in your British college, you know? Ah, yes, she laments. The French girl decides to bless us with her knowledge. You know, Darcy dumps more papers onto the floor. In London, we don't do things with madness. We are intelligent, young women in a time of enlightenment. By the way, I didn't notice you at the Women's March last week. Were you busy? Darcy, I reply hastily. You know I'm all for women's rights. Of course, there are things that I'd rather be doing than marching for them. What? She squawks, almost knocking over a clock now leaning dangerously toward the ground. She attempts to upright it, only to leave it tilted on its side. I suppose it's for the best. It's not like I often leave this small office. But then, if we march for it, people ridicule us. I'd rather work on letters to Parliament. And pray tell, where are these letters? I feel my face grow red as I bolt up. There better be a point to this meeting. Darcy backs away from my outburst, sighing. I wanted to ask you what you thought of the case. Dr. Sherman came into his house late at night. I recall the words from the page now lying on the checkerboard carpet. His daughter was still at the secondary school's dance recital, one she only feigned interest in. Darcy raises an eyebrow. I didn't remember anything like that in the case. I only assumed apologies. I'm sorry. Alice just brought a lot of attention to herself. Anyway, where were we? The very beginning, I believe. Precisely. I pretend not to notice the acid in her voice. Dr. Sherman swears that he was missing a certain object from his house. However, the object seems to be missing from the case. That's what I wanted to show you. Darcy nods. She flicks a paper toward my desk, containing only a black and white picture. I squint between the grainy pixels, making out an image. He's really suing for a hat? That hat costs over $100,000. Darcy discloses, snatching the photo back into her brown briefcase. But then, why is he suing for $1 million? I ask, still incredulous. He believes Blake Connery stole the hate. She adjusts her glasses before turning her back on me. Didn't you read the report? Of course I did. She sniffs at the outburst. Mr. Connery went to Sherman's house to go over their last meeting. Something about therapy, I believe. Perhaps this case could help you? Darcy points a pen towards me. You could use some anger management, and with that, the dastardly woman exits stage left, a smug smile still plastered on her face. Is it possible to hit a glass ceiling when your boss is a woman? Still, It's hard for me to believe it. And so you see, the red-faced man before me spits. That's why the hammer of justice must be brought down. My house was ravaged by this madman. I wouldn't dare say it for any of my other patients, but Blake Connery is a psychopath. Well, I can sense his anger rising even higher than mine as I look over the report. When you gave us access to your notes, it didn't seem as if Mr. Connery had any sort of mental illnesses besides his bipolar disorder. Exactly. He stands up, almost sloshing tea on my immaculate red dress. When Darcy had permitted me to interview Dr. Sherman, I'd expected someone much less unhinged. Why is it that the mad are always the most composed? He put on a farce. Dr. Sherman sits back down, crossing his hands. It's almost obvious that he's trying to pull some therapeutic shit on me. Of course, it'd take a lot more than that to faze me. Either Sherman's a bad therapist, or he truly is under a lot of stress from losing his hat. He made me believe that he's not a bloody thief. Let's not jump to accusations about the defendant. I place the papers back into their files to stop him from seeing the work I've already done. It wouldn't do for my client to already know I believe he's insane. Oh? A mousy blonde jumps into the scene, perhaps around 16, nearly the age I was when I first came to this despicable city. Ignore Papa's ravings. He's just angry still, and rightfully so. For a moment, I'm afraid that he'll slap the girl I've already assumed to be Alice, but he laughs it off. Perhaps she has a therapeutic herself. Despite that fact, something bubbles inside of me as I stare at her in the slightly blue dress. It's my most prized possession. I can make you another, Papa. Alice leans down to hug her father's neck. He smiles, then turns back to me, the joy already wiped off his face. What can I say? I have that effect on some people. I'm sure you can, my butterfly, but we must bring down justice. And with that, I'm immediately done. I've gathered almost useless information, and then it daunts on me. This is what it's going to be like for a straight month, maybe more. This is what I despise about this city. Everything is either gloomy or wonderful. The people, the jobs, the world. But one thing stays the same. In fact, that's the charm of it. Everything is stagnant, orbiting around the world. We all get a chance to be in the spotlight, and sometimes that's the worst part. I think I have enough information for today, I sigh, placing my tea down with a slow clink. Is it enough to incarcerate the bastard? You're suing him, I remind Dr. Sherman. He's not going to jail? Ha! When I'm done with him, I'm sure that won't be the case. I hired the entirety of the best law firm in the city to work on my case. I can't lose. I'm done arguing with him. On any other day, I'd gladly debate with him until he realizes how much of a damn fool he is. But today, it's almost impossible. The streets are nearly deserted for a crisp May day. I can hear the roars of a crowd in the distance, but there's no one on this street. I check my watch, disappointing myself almost immediately. It's still technically my lunch break, and I haven't found anything useful yet. I'd usually be good and done by now. Instead, I'm stuck in this rabbit hole of a case. No evidence, and I'm surrounded by lunatics. Just my luck, naturally. Eventually, I'm face to face with the source of the crowd's cheering. A band plays upon a large wooden stage, surrounded by small bulbs holding dead string lights. It doesn't take long to find a familiar face. Bonnie? She twists around, staring at me in fear. Her voice comes out way too fast, almost like Dr. Sherman's. Okay, look, don't tell Darcy. I just heard they were playing today, and I'm not telling Darcy, I urge. Anyway, they're pretty good. Better than anyone else on the radio, at least. What's their name? The Hatters. Bonnie shrugs. I know. It's weird. No? I shake my head. More like a coincidence. Ugh. She hangs her tan arms around my neck, jumping to the dark, sporadic beat. Are you still on that case? Well, Bonnie, my voice drifts off before I can dish out a biting comment. Wait, how do you know about the case? She blushes deep red. I might have read it. You did? I laugh incredulously, fixing it immediately after. No, I'm just surprised. That's great. I could use some help. But what made you decide it? Well, Bonnie shrugs. I just wanted to help out, I guess. I'm always just the girl behind the desk, the one with a smile. I saw how you stood up to Darcy, and her thoughts are interrupted by perhaps the cutest man eclipsing the world. A guitar held in his dark hands. His curls are covered in a thin sheen of sweat as he smiles toward us. It takes me a moment and a jab from Bonnie to realize it's me he's smiling at. Hey, he flashes us a gleaming grin, tipping a tall top hat, clashing directly with his leather and chains. Name's Blake, and just like that, the conversation is ruined. No? The smile fades a little as the band on stage drifts off. I guess he's their central power source. I can't understand. I blush profusely. No, it's not you. I just mean, you're Blake Connery, I assume. Bonnie's eyes flash with fear at the notion. I mean, I know it's random. It's mad, but it's so me. Was it fate that brought us together? He brushes past Bonnie. But for once, I don't see her angry that a man is ignoring her. I can see the emotions warring in her mind. On one side, we know that I'm going to have to possibly rob him of all his money. on the other hand, he's hot. You know my name. Well? I pull out the manila folder, reaching for the picture displaying him I grabbed from Dr. Sherman's office. I also have your file. He doesn't display the reaction I expected. He leans back, staring down at his watch. You're working for Sherman, huh? That seems to be the case. So, Bonbon leans back, grabbing her bright yellow purse. I should probably. She leaves her bleach blonde curls bouncing in the wind. Can I just tell you? I try to imitate his smile, only to completely cringe. That man is clearly insane. That gives him a laugh. It's his daughter, Alice? Now I have to stifle my chuckle. But she's innocent. That's just what she wants you to believe. Say, how about you stick with me, and you win this case for me? I have heaps of knowledge for you. And I suppose you know this because you're an expert lawyer? Dr. Sherman holds all his meetings in his house, Blake recites. I was there lawfully, and I never stole his hat. But we don't have the security cameras. I beg your pardon, Sherman has cameras. And even if he won't give you access, I will. And you lawfully took these? Ya got me there. Blake stares sheepishly down toward the folder. I have connections. And that isn't shady at all. If you've been having a bad time in this city, it's because you haven't been living like me. I know it all. That doesn't answer my question, genius. Look. Connery stares back at the clock again. Are you on a break? I have about an hour or two before I need to return to the office. Sherman cut the meeting short. Have lunch with me. I promise that by the end of it, you'll be swayed to my side. And what does that mean? He produces a wallet, holding up a wad of cash. Whatever Sherman paid you will look like a joke compared to what I can give you. I'll even give you more than just money. Okay. I blush. Let's just lead the way, gladly. Miss Olivia. Blake flashes me another dangerous smile. I believe this will be the beginning of a great union. Murder. Hi, Miranda. I'm officially Officer Zionel, but you can call me Zoe. I just want to ask you a few questions about the recent situation. Zoe, don't say recent situation. It's stupid when we all know that what you mean is murder of your father. You're a feisty kid, Miranda. Thanks. I take it as a compliment. Now that we got that out of the way, do you remember exactly where you were at exactly 6:53 p.m. on July 17th? Gosh, I don't remember. It seems that all of my memories have been wiped from my head. Miranda! Okay. I won't be a brat. But you said yourself that I'm feisty, Zoe. I didn't mean it as a compliment, like you took it. Whoa, ho, ho! She's got an attitude, too. I think we'll get along. So, what's the real answer to my question? I was at the bowling alley with my twin Maya and our best friends Sarah and Diavian. We were about to eat pizza before the next game. It was a tournament. When Gima called and said Dad was shot. Long story short, me and Maya left before we could finish the tournament, and our friends lost. That's what Maya said. But who's Gma? Maya mentioned a grandma, but not a Gma. Oh, right. Maya calls our grandma, but I call her Gma. That's what I called her when I was little, and I couldn't say grandma, and it stuck. All right. How did your grandmother know that your father was hit? She went over to our house to drop off some books that I had left at her house. And that's when she found him. Dead as a doornail, right there on the kitchen floor. You and Maya's stories are matching up, but Maya seemed a lot more emotional about this than you do. She was practically sobbing as she talked to me. Why are you so cool and collected? Zoe, do you seriously not realize that Dad is not Maya and I real Dad? That one left us before we were born. Don't have a clue where he's at. When Mama married Rob, Maya warmed up to him immediately. I was not so cooperative. I've never been close to him. Yeah, he's always been there for me. But he never, and will never, now, become a father to me. When I first found out about it all, I was a little upset. But it only took me a day to be over it. Maya, like you said, is still a wreck. Oh, I understand now. So, the first person your grandmother called was you. Not Maya, or your uncle, or any of your aunts? Not even your mother? Yeah. Now remember that this was Mama's mama. She didn't want to hurt Mama right away. Maya would be too sensitive too, and she didn't have any of Rob's siblings' numbers. So, the first one she called was me. Simple as that. Maya told me that your grandmother called you first because she thought you were closest to Rob. You're a bad liar, Zoe. I know my sister like I know my own mind. She, and everyone else in our family, already knows that I'm not the closest person to Rob. So what did she say? You know, you should be a detective. I did my best lying, and you still got me. That could come handy in a lot of situations if you become a part of the force. Yeah, whatever. What did Maya say? Same thing as you, Miranda. Okay. So, now what? Can I leave? Please. I need to talk to Maya. She's probably hysterical by now. No, you can't. I'm sorry. There are still a few more questions that I have to ask you. Where was your mother when Rob was so awfully killed? She was at work, at the hospital. They were short-staffed. Okay, this may be a dumb question, but do you know where your aunts and uncle were? Yeah, they were all getting together for a dinner at Olive Garden. Rob was going to go with them. I'm guessing that he must have been on his way out when he was shot. Do you know of anyone who had a grudge against Rob? Miranda, who is it? Miranda, was it you? Why, Miranda? Miranda! I hated him. He abused me. He slapped me, punched me, kicked me. He verbally abused me too. He never did it to anyone else. Your sister knows. She's covering up for you. Yes? Was it self-defense? Or did you do it because you were so sick of it all? Self-defense. Despite all of these lies, I promise you that it was just self-defense. He was trying to hurt me again. He was screaming at me. I went into his room and got into the gun safe. I pulled the gun out. I hid it behind my back while I walked downstairs. In the kitchen, he started to slap me and punch me in the gut and face. After a few minutes, I just shot. I couldn't stop it. It is possible for us to prove that, so you wouldn't be put in juvie. For now, though, you'll have to stay here at the station. I'm sorry, Miranda. I can tell you're telling the truth, but I can't release you until we can prove that, now that you've admitted that. I understand. All right, come with me. We're going to go talk to Maya. Miranda! Oh, God. You told her, didn't you? Yes, I did, Maya. I'm sorry. It's okay. I still love you. I love you too. All right, girls. Maya, will you tell me the truth of what you know? Of what actually happened? That's the thing. I don't know anything. All I know is what Miranda told me. She shot Rob because he was trying to hurt her again. Then she came to the bowling alley to play in a tournament. That part of our story was true. Okay. I'm going to call your mother to pick you up, Maya. Miranda, you stay with her until I come back. Okay, all right. Suicide pact. Every Friday, my parents cook the most delicious turkey that has ever existed on Earth. They use natural ingredients that I have never heard of before. Every time they make it, I ask them for the recipe. They just never tell me. Instead, they look at me with a smile mixed with sadness and joy, and tell me that one day, when their time has come to pass, they will tell me. Tell me the secret ingredient. This is the routine that happens every week, every Friday. Little do they know that their time will be my time too. Although I know that my parents won't tell me the recipe, I give it another shot. Walk up to them, give them my best smile, take their hands, and ask. But they already know what I am going to say. They grin and shakes their heads, nodding towards my room, sending me the message to get ready for bed. I sigh and slump towards my room. I stop in front of my door. The door is decorated with pictures from my favorite band. The picture on the very left makes me smile. It's the picture of my favorite band member making a silly face. I laugh dreamily and stare into his brown eyes, but I'm not the only one laughing. Soon enough, my older brother Luke is pounding me on the back and laughing. Not really a nice laugh either. Lola, you've got to stop this, he chokes out. Stop what? I demand, my brows furrowed. Stop joking around with your pictures. It's too funny to handle. I raise my eyebrows high and stare at him, long and hard. Finally, I shoot him a glare and step into my room. I don't forget to slam the door right into his laughing face. See, this is the reason I need to get away from my family. My brother. He is so annoying. You wish that you weren't born. And I don't. Yes, I am killing myself because of my brother. It was either this or run away. But if you run away, you just get kidnapped and killed anyway. So what's the difference? Once safely in my room, and my brother gone, I sneak into my closet and pull out the small but strong bulletin board that I got from my grandmother on my birthday. I forgot to check yesterday's square on the calendar, so I will do it with today's. I take the white chalk I have been using the past month out of the box that it was in and slash 2 white lines next to the others. When done, I carefully put everything back in my closet and lie on my bed. Breathing slowly, I run down the suicide plan in my mind. When I come back to my room from brushing my teeth, something in the room is different. The lights are off. Did Mom come in here? Dad couldn't, because he's in Miami for work. Oh no. What if my brother came in here? I try to shrug it off and crawl under my covers. The whooshing of the wind outside quickly drowns me in my sleep, and all my thoughts are lost. The next morning, I get up late. I quickly eat breakfast and get ready for school. I arrive at school on time, but I'm still worried about the lights turned off yesterday. Someone must have went into my room, did something, and forgotten that the lights had already been on when they went in. My worried look must be severe, because Angie, my best friend, asks me if I am all right at lunch. Oh, I'm fine, I reply. Her head is cocked to the side, and she studies me closely. I try to give her a brief smile and shrug it off. This is a good idea, because Angie knows that my shrugs are all truthful and intentional. I feel so bad, though, for betraying and lying to my friend, even though she can help me get out of this mess. I remind myself that some things are meant to be dealt with alone and individually, but I still feel bad. So before the lunch bell rings, I ask her if she wants to come over, and her face lightens. She tells me, of course. When school ends, we meet up at our usual spot near the gate and start to walk towards my house. We talk about the usual things: hallway gossip, grades, and boys. When we get to my house, we watch a movie and make slime, which fortunately takes my mind off things. Before Angie leaves, she hugs me tight and whispers into my ear that she knows something is wrong and that she can help me anytime with it. She tells me that I am never alone. If only that were true. Even after our time together, Angie and I only used up 3 hours of our time. I still have 1 hour left to chill. I get bored, so I decide to slash today's mark earlier than usual and head into my closet. When I pull out the bulletin board, though, all the tally marks are gone. I'm so shocked that I gasp out loud. What? I what? I stutter. I was not going to let this go. If someone had done this, only my brother could. My mother wouldn't do such an evil thing. But if my brother had read the notebook, then he would know that he was being such a pain. I wait until he comes home from work and confront him. It did not work as well as I thought, though. He convinces me that I can't kill myself because of one person, that I need more bad things in my life to hate myself enough and kill myself. We sort it out, and he swears to not be much of a pain anymore. I guess some things are meant to be dealt with by talking and not action. I have learned my lesson. Attempted murder. New case, Noella. Thump. A stack of files in a manila folder lands on the desk in front of me, sending my papers flying. Great. Now my spotless office has papers everywhere. I huff and look up to glare at my boss's departing back. No case summary? He turns back, talking a few strides into the office and closing the door behind him. That's the good thing about being one of the top-ranking detectives in our firm. I get an office to myself. Unlike others such as Otto and Shorelick, who have to share one. It gives the privacy and thinking space one needs when uncovering confidential cases. Young woman, aged in mid-20s. Her name is Enya Brown. Enya Brown? The Enya Brown I rescued from a dark alley a year ago? I turn back to him, nodding in acknowledgement. She's reported claims of stalking and attempted murder. Interesting. Any reason why I was given the case instead of the others? I might be a detective chief superintendent in our firm, but there should be plenty of others qualified to take this case, especially those in his inner circle who don't have other things such as helping to run the faculty to do. Celine's in Egypt, Henrik's in Germany, Jericho's sick, and Manuel, Maxime, and Molino are busy. I don't want anybody else but the best detectives for this case. It's pretty serious, and there's little evidence at this stage. Only the best could pull it off. He pauses. Oh, and the client specifically asked for you. Make the Annery Feralis Detective Agency proud, Noella. Then he departs, leaving me to ponder the case. That still leaves Jane and Danny unaccounted for, and I have no doubt he knew that. But what's happened to Enya since that night in the alley? I told her to contact me if anything was amiss, and I've talked to her since then. But it's been precisely 13 months, 2 weeks, and 16 hours since I rescued her from the alley, and the incidents date back at least 2 years. Why now? It was 8:30 in the evening, and I'd stayed back at work a bit longer to finish up writing a case report. The weather was miserable, having rained just minutes before, and the cobblestones were slick with water. A yellowed glow came from the rustic street lamps along the pavement, limning the edges of my briefcase with gold. Then I heard the scuffles, the thud, and the scream. Alarmed, I raced towards the sound, approaching silently as to not raise any alarm. It came from the far reaches of an alleyway that from experience I knew to be a dead end. The scream sounded female. The grunt that followed was male. I peered into the alleyway to see an auburn-haired female struggling against a bulky, dark-haired male's solid grip. She was pinned to the wall, and the brute was touching her in awful places, pulling at her clothing and drawing a dagger as she fought back. She stilled at the sight of the knife, and knowing her chances were slim, I slipped silently down the alleyway. Within moments, I had my arms around the brute's neck and a foot hooked behind his ankle. He slashed with the knife, and without a second thought, I'd kicked it from his grasp. With the brute pinned on the ground and his neck held in submission, I choked the air out of his lungs, enough to render him unconscious, but no further. Quickly, I picked up my briefcase, glancing up to the young woman before me. She still hadn't run. "Are you all right?" "I'm okay, I suppose. Thank you." She looked away down the alley. "Will he be okay?" "He's just unconscious. He'll wake up in a few minutes, so we should head off. Do you need somewhere to stay?" She shook her head, but her eyes were distant. I shouldered off my coat, wrapping it around her shivering form. "Come on, girl. Let's get you somewhere safe. We'll get you nice and warm." Within 5 minutes, I directed her to a nearby hotel, had her swaddled in blankets and a cup of hot cocoa before her. She was too shaken to ask her any questions, but I could only assume what had happened. I remained with her for as long as I could, heading off home before my flatmate would worry about me. As I stood to leave, I retrieved a business card from my briefcase. "If you need anything, hun, just give me a call. I'm happy to help anytime you need it." I slipped it onto the table in front of her and quietly let myself out. The card on the table before her read DCS. Miss Noella Anderson, Anari Ferrales, Detective Agency, PH 0427738813, email noella@afta.org. Peeking my head into Skorlik, Kuhn, and Otto Schuster's office, it comes as no surprise that Otto is playing video games, and Skorlik is sitting on the windowsill reading a book. "New case, fellas. Briefing in my office in 10. An acknowledging grunt from Shorlick. "But I'm in the middle of the boss level, Noella. If you make me go now, I'll lose all my progress." Otto whines. "Suck it up, Otto. I've given you 10 minutes. That's enough. You shouldn't be playing video games anyway. You know that." He whines again, and I leave them to their activities, returning to my office. 10 minutes later, Skorlik enters my office, dragging a sullen Otto behind him by the wrist. We discuss the case, examining the details given, and the evidence provided, both photographed and in hard copy. Skorlik and I figure out a plan forward, while Otto sulks. He'll confirm the DNA sample, while I trace emails and calls to Enya. Then we'll interview neighbors and retrieve security footage. Then assemble the evidence and incriminate the offender. What did you find? I ask my co-workers. DNA specimen confirmed, Skorlik says curtly. Insights, Mr. Kuhn. There were a few sets of DNA on the letter, including Enya's own, but I narrowed down the suspect list to 2 brothers, Avery and Scott Lancaster, and another man called Jeremiah Hayes. They're the ones that fit Miss Brown's description. Mr. Hayes is suspected to be a friend of the 2 brothers. He could be involved with the case. Skorlik Kuhn sights back at his chair and glances at Otto Schuster, the other detective on my team for this case. Anything new, Mr. Schuster? Quit the formalities, please. Nothing new, but I have a question. Skorlik, were both brothers' DNA on the letter? Indeterminate. Why? Unconfirmed. Well, I personally think the brothers are twins. Just saying. Any evidence, Otto? No. Search the database, though. I get the feeling they are. I search the database, and sure enough, they're twins. Paternal twins at that. Huh, look at that. Otto was right. They're identical twins, which explains why it's determinate. They have the same DNA. Skorlik nods, and Otto grins smugly. Well, fellas, guess we have our list of suspects. I traced the anonymous threat emails and calls to Miss Brown, to Avery Lancaster's house, and areas that he's reportedly visited. Oh, and it's not listed in the case. But after she was cornered in the lane, the ID card was found on the unconscious man, and it said, Avery P. Lancaster, precisely the person all our other evidence has pointed to. Other evidence, such as him being one of Enya's ex-boyfriends and being one of Enya's suggestions of the suspect. That Avery guy must be some sort of creep, considering the things on that file, Otto commented. I wonder what his middle name is. Peter? More like P for psychopath, I mumble under my breath. Psychopath starts with S, idiot, Otto says, turning to Skorlik. He puts his hands up, trying to tell Otto it wasn't him, but Otto gives him a skeptical look. Dumbass, it starts with P. Skorlik mumbles, glancing back at me. Meeting over. I get up to leave as they start to squabble. Psychopath starts with P, Otto. You should have learnt that in high school, I say, leaving Skorlik's relieved face and Otto's infuriated expression behind me. Walking door to door in Avery Lancaster's neighborhood, Skorlik, Otto, and I have found very little. The young family that lives across the road said that he's a nice guy that tends to keep to himself, but they'd only moved in recently, so could not provide much detail. The lesbian couple and the old man living either side didn't know anything of interest. Overall, there wasn't too much evidence that they could provide, but they agreed to let us view their security feeds that had a view of his house. That only leaves interviewing Avery himself. Knock, knock. The hollow sound reverberates through my fist as I knock on Avery Lacaster's front door. Good morning. Is there anything I can do for you? Avery's puzzled face steps out from behind the door. Yes, sir. I am Detective Chief Superintendent Noella Anderson, and these are my colleagues, Otto Schuster and Shorlick Kuhn. We would like to talk to you for a minute, if that's okay with you. Of course. Is anything wrong, miss? He looks genuinely oblivious and concerned, and I'm nearly convinced he could be a great actor. We'll speak inside, please. Was it my brother? I told him that rock adventure was a bad idea. I raise a brow. Your brother is fine. If we may? He lets us in, leading us through impeccably neat rooms and into the dining room. It's business time. Do you know why we're here, Mr. Lancaster? If it's not my brother being a doofus, then no, I don't. Should I know? Perhaps. We are here to ask you a few questions about Enya Brown. Brief pain flickers through his expression. Is Enya okay? He says, barely a whisper. Considering what's been happening in her life lately, she is doing rather well. You wouldn't happen to know anything about her recent activity, would you? No, I don't. I haven't spoken to her since we broke up, and I haven't seen her since. Interesting. Did you know that she's filed a case for stalking and attempted murder with the AFDA? What? You are the prime suspect, and all the evidence leads to you. So if you could tell us the truth, that would be greatly appreciated. He nods. Now tell me again, when did you last see her? About 2 years ago. We went out with a few friends, but I didn't really talk to her. It was still awkward from the breakup. Right. Was anything of notice said? Scott said she was hot. Enya ignored me most of the evening. But no, nothing of notice. Now why did you and Enya break up? She was going to study overseas, and my grandmother had just died, so the timing wasn't great for either of us. It pained us both greatly, but we knew it was the best for both of us. Neither of us have been in a relationship since, at least as far as I'm aware. Would you be jealous if another guy showed interest in her? No? I would respect Enya's decision to move on. She deserves to enjoy her life. Oh, come on, Otto bursts out. Quit the sappiness. If you haven't seen her in 2 years, then explain why 1 year ago she was attacked in a dark alley by a man fitting your description, wielding a knife. A man, I might add, that had an ID card with the name Avery Lancaster on it, or why your name was encoded into a death threat letter to Enya, Shorlick adds, and why the threatening calls and emails were traced back to your very house. Avery gets paler and paler with every question, as if realizing that he has no way out, realizing that he didn't hide his tracks well enough, and he was caught. I don't understand what you mean. You hear what we said, Mr. Lancaster. Your DNA was found on the letter, and there are all these other cases of evidence. Do you mind if we have a look around? We show him our search warrant, and he nods solemnly. Avery leads us around the house, showing us through the different rooms of his house. There's nothing much of notice in any of the places we search. This guy is pretty good at hiding his evidence. And this is the guest bedroom. My brother keeps some of his stuff here sometimes. We nod and have a poke around. We're just about to finish up when I spot a discarded plastic bag in the wardrobe. What's that, Mr. Lancaster? I don't know. Some of my brother's stuff. He visits sometimes and keeps some stuff here. I don't monitor his stuff. This room is the only place I allow him to put his stuff wherever he wants, and I won't clean it up. May we look inside? Of course. We open the bag curiously, with our latex gloves on, as not to disturb the possible specimens. The bag opens to reveal a pair of worn, woolen, fingerless gloves, a roll of sticky tape, an ID card bearing Avery's details, and a few folded pieces of paper. Skorlik pulls out one of the pieces of paper and reads it aloud for my dearest Enya. Really, I thought you'd have noticed by now. Our connection is true, and I love you dearly. Must you always hide from me? Show me what you can do in bed. Can you do that? Otherwise, I will finish what I started that night in the alley. If I can't have you, no one can. Terror upon you, shall you not oblige? Take what you want from me, but I will always prevail. Do not fail me. Love from your dearest. I miss you. Dark, much, but that sounds an awful lot like a jealous lover's letter. Did you write this, Mr. Lancaster? Avery shakes his head, and his face is deathly pale from fear. Fear for Enya, or fear for himself? Well, you have a lot of evidence against you, sir. I would recommend you start telling the truth, or you'll be imprisoned for lying to authoritative figures. Understood? I only wish to tell you the truth, ma'am. I did not know that letter was here, nor do I know who wrote it. May we take it for evidence? Of course, ma'am. And with that, Otto, Skorlik, and I take our leave, sealing the evidence in decontaminated specimen bags and leaving Avery's ashen face behind. So, what do you think of our adventure today? Avery's house sure was suspicious. Yeah, I think we have enough evidence now, Otto adds. I think Avery is innocent, Skorlik murmurs under his breath. I cut my glare across the table to him. What? Did I hear that correctly? Otto shrugs. You do understand, Skorlik, that every single piece of evidence we have points to Avery Lancaster. But maybe that's what the criminal wants us to think. Everything points to Avery. But if he truly did it, there would be some degree of a cover-up. This is all in the open. It's too easy. Mr. Lancaster's DNA is on every specimen. His pining for a lost love threaded through threat letters, class, and emails, all traced to his house, a house his brother visits often. Think, Noella, think. Are you saying it was Avery's brother, Scott, that is doing this? What would be his motive, though? It makes no sense, Skorlik. It's obvious. It was Avery. Check the cams for the night of the alley attack. I pull up the feeds from various residents' security cameras and go back to the date of the attack. We watch as a car pulls up in front of Avery's house, and Avery gets out, knocking on the front door. Must be Scott, I conclude. And sure enough, a second Avery greets him at the door. They go inside, and about an hour later, one of the Lancaster twins comes out holding a plastic bag, and there's a lump under his hoodie near his hip. The knife he pulled on Enya. Turning up the audio, we hear a voice yell from inside the house. "Can you get me milk while you're at the supermarket? Thanks. See ya, Scott." Scott comes outside and gets into one of the cars that had been parked outside before he'd arrived, presumably Avery's, and drives off. Why didn't he take his own? We skip ahead to the dates of the emails and calls from Avery's house, and Scott had visited on every single one of them. Didn't Avery mention something about Scott having the hots for Enya? And he seemed pretty concerned for her, Otto suggests. But Skorlik and I's attention is elsewhere. The letter. The realization dawns on both of us, and as I peer over his shoulder, I notice something I hadn't when he'd read it out. Each sentence is on a new line, and the first letter of every sentence forms another message. From Scott L. My face slackens with the realization. Do you see it, Skorlik? He nods solemnly. It all makes sense. Their DNA is the same. Being twins, Scott tried to avert the attention from him, turning it on his identical twin. But ultimately, his diversions failed. He's been found out. Otto. It was Scott. The letters and the ID card prove it. It was Scott, I murmur. So it was actually Scott C. Lancaster, the evil side to his angelic brother Avery, Otto says, in an exaggerated, scheming voice. Seems to me like his initial was a foretelling. C for criminal. He smirks, and we all burst out laughing, the relief enveloping me that Enya would finally be safe and that we'd done it. The Rolodex Robbery. Last week, tragedy struck, and my home was broken into. I came home exhausted from work one day to see the glass in my door shattered, cupboards ajar, papers strewn about the floor. Naturally, I sprinted back outside and immediately called the police as my heart was attempting to shatter my ribs. Thankfully, the police showed up fairly quickly and cleared the house. Whoever broke in was long gone. The one hand. I was relieved, because if I had walked fully in and they were still there, who knows what could have happened. On the other hand, I had no idea who did this, and now it would require an investigation. Once the crime scene investigators cleared the house for me to enter, I took a quick inventory of what was missing. TV? Still there. Jewelry? Here. Computer. It's been accessed, but Nothing was added or deleted. Any major items of worth were still there, but I still had one more place to look. I went into my kitchen and checked the false bottom in the cupboard underneath my sink. My heart splattered into the floor when I saw that the safe that I normally kept there was missing. There was a giant, gaping hole in the dust where my super secure safe used to be. "Officers! Officers!" I cried. "I know what's missing. I know what they were after." One of them flipped to a new page in her notebook. "Okay? What is it?" "My family's secret recipes. They were all in a Rolodex that I kept in a triple-locked safe that was hidden underneath a cupboard." The two police officers shared a look. "Recipes? That's what all this is about?" I took a breath. "Yes, I know how it sounds. You need to understand that my family has been the top champion in every local, regional, and state bake-off for the last 10 years. I come from a very long line of exceptional bakers, and I'm willing to bet that if it came down to it, someone would kill for these recipes." Neither officer looked particularly convinced, but they wrote down my statement anyway. "All right, Ms. Norman. We'll analyze our evidence and start on the investigation. We'll get back to you if we get some answers." The police finally cleared out of my house, and I was left with the wreckage of the break-in. For the next 4 hours, I swept, wiped, mopped, and tried to get rid of any sign that someone had broken into my house. In doing all that, I had time to think. Chances are, it'll be a while before I get any answers. If I get any answers, I might just have to take matters into my own hands. Pouring myself a cup of tea, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my sink. Who would know where I keep those recipes? That's not a particularly obvious spot, and I haven't told many people about it. I haven't told many people about it. At that moment, I came up with a particularly genius plan, if I do say so myself. There are a select few people that are aware of not only my family's recipes, but also that hiding spot. That narrowed my suspect list down to 3 people: Julia, Angel, and Cameron. They're all my friends to an extent, but we met through a baking competition last year and bonded over our competitiveness. Normally they're good people, but when it comes to baking, the gloves are off. I wouldn't put it past one of them to steal my recipes to give their holiday desserts an edge. Sitting at that table, I kept tapping my fingers in thought. The annoyance at both myself and the intruder settled deep in my stomach. I didn't mean for any of them to see that spot in the first place. I was cleaning up before they came over and had my headphones in, so I didn't hear them knock or come in. Honestly, them just coming in when I didn't answer the door should have been a red flag right there. I had just put the Rolodex away after returning a recipe to it when I turned around to find the 3 of them standing in my kitchen. After that, I should have just moved it, but at the time, I didn't think any of them would go as far as to break into my own home. I'm just glad my daughter wasn't home for any of this. Kate thankfully left yesterday to go a college friend's cabin for the week. I don't know what I would have done if she was here when the intruder broke in. Like I told the officer, people would kill for those recipes. Anyway, back to my plan. I figured that if I could get everyone together for a cookie swap, whoever stole my recipes would be almost certainly arrogant enough to try to outdo everyone else using one of them. Betcha they think that I haven't memorized every single secret ingredient that could distinguish those recipes. They would be wrong. The next day, I called all three of them, and we arranged for a cookie swap that Friday. I had 2 days to think about whoever is the most likely to steal my Rolodex and what kind of cookie I should make to destroy all of them. By the time the Friday of the swap rolled around, I had settled on an ooey-gooey, dark chocolate and peppermint cookie that had always been a hit of mine. What I hadn't settled on, however, was who the intruder could be. I had just pulled the last batch of cookies out of the oven when I heard the doorbell ring. I smoothed out my dress and put on my biggest smile before opening the door with the newly repaired window. "Hey!" I cheered. "Happy holidays!" Despite the freezing weather, they all smiled and greeted me in turn. I let them into the house and offered to take their cookies back to the kitchen. While they were preoccupied with discarding their bundles of layers, I snuck a peek at each of their cookies. Sprinkle-covered shortbread? Nope. We're not really a shortbread family. We prefer richer flavors. Sugar cookies? Like every family, we do have a classic sugar cookie recipe, but I can't be sure if this is it until I try it. Red velvet cookie with vanilla buttercream frosting? Now that sounds familiar. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to try this one too to confirm. I grabbed the wine glasses and tucked the bottle under my arm to join my guests in the living room. For the first few minutes, we just chatted about small nothings. The weather, the traffic, how good the wine was, blah, blah, blah. So, Grace, what's new? Anything exciting happen recently? Angel asked. Do I tell them to see how they react? Or do I test their reactions by not saying anything? Nothing much. Work is busy as ever, and I'm just preparing for the holidays with Kate. Christmas shopping, decorating, the Christmas card. You know, the works, I tried to say, as casually as possible. Julia nodded along sympathetically. I feel ya. Between trying to get presents and wrap presents and fighting with the in-laws, who are staying with us right now, by the way, without asking first, I'm absolutely swamped. She sounds a little too busy to be breaking into my house. Congrats, Julia. You're at the bottom of the list. And you, Cameron? What's going on in your life? He took a sip of wine. A much calmer holiday season than you guys, apparently. Jason and I are having a pretty quiet Christmas this year. And unlike you all, I'm not 60 and don't send out Christmas cards. We knew he meant well, but we jokingly acted insulted regardless. Well, you should. What else is your mother going to cry over when you don't return for Christmas? Angel said. Probably the margarita that she'll be sipping on the cruise that she and Dad booked for the holidays, he retorted. I chuckled at that. It didn't, however, change the fact that he had plenty of time to break in to my home. Angel, you're up, I said. Work, study, sleep, repeat. She groaned. Nursing school is kicking my butt. Why did I think this was a good idea? Because you want to further your career? And one day, get the big bucks, Julia supplied. Angel groaned again and threw her head back. But at what cost? The longer we all chatted, the more disappointed I knew I was going to be when I found out who broke in. I keep forgetting how much I like these guys. I decided to rip the bandage off. All right. Now for the main event. The cookies, I announced. I grabbed the cookies and returned them to their respective owners. I'd like to go first, Julia provided, holding open her container of shortbreads. We all reached in and grabbed one. I put it up to my lips and took a bite. Crumbly, but not too dry. Sweet, but not overbearing. Still lacks a bit of flavor. Overall, for a shortbread, that's not too bad. Next up was Angel. We each took a frosted sugar cookie. Elegant design with the decorating. Not too dense, still flavorful, and no secret ingredient. Guess she's off the hook. Finally, it was Cameron's turn. I carefully took a nibble of the red velvet cookie, and right away, I could tell something was off. Well, this doesn't taste right, and the secret ingredient certainly isn't in here. Jason's on a bit of a vegan kick right now. Personally, not a fan, but I still thought I'd give vegan red velvet cookies a shot, he explained. I swallowed the cookie down. The things we do for love. As everyone took one of my cookies, I took a moment to think. No one had any of the secret ingredient or used one of my family's recipes. So, either they're not as cocky as I thought, or they didn't do it. As everyone finished their assessments of my treat, I prepared my next move. Actually, when I said not much was happening, that was a lie. A few days ago, my house got broken into. My family's Rolodex of recipes was stolen. I glanced over their faces. Dang it. Nothing but pity or shock. I'm so sorry. That sucks. That's awful. Are you okay? Thank you, but I'm fine. Wait. Why are you telling us this now? Cameron asked, suspicious. Well? All of a sudden, my phone started ringing. One moment, I stepped away into the kitchen. Kate, sweetie, what's up? Everything all right? I asked. Yeah, Mom. I just had a quick question. How much flour goes into the sugar cookie recipe? That was not what I was expecting her to ask. What? How much flour is in the sugar cookie recipe? I can't read Grandma's handwriting for this part. I took a breath. Honey, do you have all the recipes? Yeah. Sorry. I left the kitchen all a mess. I couldn't remember where it was, and Aubrey was rushing me, and I promised everyone that we would make our special sugar cookies. I left it all in the note on the door. By the way, did the Franklin boys apologize for throwing an ice ball through the window? All the pieces were coming together. It was my daughter who took the recipes and made a mess, and the annoying boys across the street that shattered my door window. My house hadn't been broken into after all. Her note just must have fallen into the puddle from the ice ball and gotten ruined, so I didn't see it. I felt a lot better knowing that none of my friends were to blame for this. No, they didn't. But I'll talk to them later. It's 2.5 cups for one batch. And when you add the secret ingredient, do not let them see. Understood? I told her. And please, don't take the Rolodex without asking me again. Sorry, Mom. Will do. Thanks. Love you. Love you too, I said. Before hearing the tone, I came back out to the living room, 20 pounds lighter with that new information. Where were we? I asked. You were telling us why you're just now sharing the news that your house was broken into, Cameron supplied. I looked at my friends, who could be competitive, but deep down would never go this far, and I felt guilty for ever thinking they could have done this. Just to be dramatic, I suppose, I said. With that, they all smiled, nudging my shoulder. Angel said, "Well, leave it to you." I smiled back and took a bite of my own cookie. Secret recipes or not, I'm a dang good baker. Baby revenge, Shalini. Life in New York seems to be carrying on as usual. Sirens are wailing in the air. The smell of hot dogs and coffee mingled in the air. The noise of the traffic, honks blaring, traffic and pedestrian lights beeping filled the air, along with jazz music coming from shops. Somewhere, I could hear the subway train rumbling into the station, but in every New Yorker's mouth is the latest gossip news. The murder of the infamous supermodel, Laura Myers, who was pushed from her balcony of her penthouse and plunged to death by her ex-boyfriend, Lyle Summers. And few hours ago, Lyle Summers confessed for the murder of Laura Myers. I walk down the sidewalk, bumping onto people, hurrying back to my apartment. On the way, I stop over at the newsstand. On the front page of every magazines and newspapers was the picture of Laura Myers, looking glamorous in a photo shoot on one side, with the picture of Lyle Summers looking gaunt and disheveled, leaving the Manhattan police precinct. I pick up a newspaper and read the front headlines. The supermodel fell on her death. Boyfriend responsible for the murder. The headlines sounds like something out of a crime show. I paid a disgruntled-looking man who owns the newsstand and then shovel the newspaper into my bag before heading towards the subway station. My phone starts ringing, and I groaned as I look at the number on the screen. It was my friend, Jenna, who was calling. "Hey, Jen, I answered, but Jenna broke in. "Shalini, have you heard the news?" Jenna shrieked. "Laura is murdered." Yeah, it's the talk of the day. I mumbled as I climbed down the stairs to the subway station. Hey, Jen. I am going to be on Subway. I'll call you back. And I cut off the connection before Jenna could reply. I got into the train and then sit next to two women who seemed to be carrying on some excited conversation. Little did I realize, as I sit next to them, that they were, of course, talking about Laura Myers' murder. I, anyway, sit next to them and pretend to be absorbed into my phone. Oh my God, I can't believe Laura is dead, one of the women exclaimed, as if she was sad that she lost her sister or something. Rather murdered by her boyfriend Lyle, the other woman snorted. God, Laura and Lyle are not made for each other. I mean, I don't even know why a glamorous supermodel like Laura would date a nobody like Lyle. After all I heard, he is just a bartender working in some bar in Brooklyn. Did you hear the latest grapevine? Apparently, Laura was having an affair with Joshua Schoenberg. The Joshua Schoenberg? Like the Senator Schoenberg's nephew? The one who looks so handsome, like a movie star? Like Ian Somerhalder? Yeah, that one. That's Lyle was jealous and upset, and that's why he ended up killing Laura. The woman shakes her head like she is disgusted. About a month ago, at a fashion show, Laura and Lyle got into a heated argument that the security had called in to escort Lyle out. Well, finally, Laura decided to move with someone of her league, the woman replied. Joshua and Laura would make perfect couple. Rather than her and that bartender, I didn't realize that I was gripping my phone so hard that my knuckles were turning white. I had to prevent myself from lashing out at them, but they don't know who I am. To them, I am just a working woman on my way home after a busy day at work. Thankfully, I got off from the train and walked quickly towards my apartment, leaving behind the noise and into a somewhat bum and quiet neighborhood. I fumble with my apartment keys and quickly enter into my room, closing the door behind me. I dump my bag on the sofa and then sit heavily on the sofa and start sobbing. I then wipe my eyes with my hands and then get up, breathing deeply. Slowly, I dialed a number. After about a few rings, she picked it up. Mama! I started sobbing into the phone. Cha. A few days before, I look at the pregnancy test and see the 2 lines on the stick. I am pregnant with Joshua Schoenberg's child. Should I feel joyous? I should, but lately I didn't. Joshua was not like the man I used to love. He told me that it was embarrassing to introduce me to his family because I am not white. I am a Sri Lankan. Then why did you date me? I have yelled at him. To my anger, Joshua simply shrugged. Because I enjoyed dating you, he replied with a smirk on his face. And gradually, I realized that he was having an affair, not just with an ordinary woman but with a glamorous supermodel named Laura Myers. He had taken her to places where he would never take me, and had even introduced Laura to his sister, Margot. Tears streamed down on my cheeks as I realize that he doesn't love me the way he does with Laura Myers. Racism is involved in this. I thought Joshua didn't have any racism in him, considering he was half Jewish through his father, whose family emigrated from Europe. But Joshua was too embarrassed to introduce me even to his family, because I was not white. Nonetheless, I decided to call Joshua and tell him the news. With shaking hands, I dial his number. After about 5 minutes, he answered the phone. "What now, Shalini?" he answered gruffly. "I am busy, Joshua," I stammered, and for a moment, my voice was frozen, as if I am unable to speak anything. "Shalini, I don't have time. I thought I gave you money." His tone was impatient. "I am pregnant," I blurted out loudly. There was silence on the other end, and for a moment, I thought Joshua had ended the connection. But I heard his raspy outtake of breath. "Pregnant? What? I thought I made it clear," he began. "Please, Joshua, please don't tell me to abort the baby," I pleaded. "The baby can bring us back to—" "Shalini, I don't want a family with you. I have already chosen someone to spend life with," he said gruffly. "Do what you want with the baby. I don't care." And the line went dead. I stared at the phone. "Do what you want with the baby. I don't care." Those words felt like sharp, icy words in my heart. Joshua Schoenberg is heartless and a complete different person from the one I used to love. And then I made a decision. I pick up my bag and set off to find Laura Myers. I am going to ask her to leave Joshua Schoenberg alone, because I will do anything to keep my baby and make Joshua responsible for the baby. After all, he is the father. The Plunderers bank robbery and waltzing have a lot in common. Both have defined rhythms, and they're better with a partner. After waiting my turn, like an everyday customer, I handed my note and a paper sack to the blonde girl behind the counter while pulling back my sport coat to show her the butt of my pistol. The note read, "This is a robbery. Remain calm so no one gets hurt. Fill the sack from your drawer. Have a nice day." When she scanned my note, her eyes bulged and flicked from side to side. Her frightened blue peepers filled with disbelief as she stared at me to see if this was a prank. I smiled like a friend. "Please fill it up." With trembling fingers, she stuffed bills into the sack as if she'd win a prize for the fullest bag. The gorilla behind me noticed something wrong. Maybe the sweat gouging channels through the quivering blonde's rouge tipped him off. He grunted and grabbed me in a bear hug, pinning my arms. My Marine training kicked in and I stomped the arch of his foot with the sharp leather heel of my polished Oxfords. He winced and loosened his grip. This gave me enough slack to reach behind and twist his balls. He yipped like an injured puppy and let go, slowly sinking to the floor. The bank patrons turned to stare at the commotion. Unsure what was happening, I reached through the teller's wicket and yanked the half-filled sack of money from the blonde's jittery hands as my assailant rolled on the floor, grabbing his crotch. One of the suits in the back reached for a phone. Time to go. I strolled out of the bank before anyone attempted to jump me. Outside the bank, I wanted to run, but nothing attracts attention more than a man running from a bank with a bag in his hand. The alarm clanged, and I turned towards the bank like the other pedestrians, plastering a puzzled look on my face. A siren wailed in the distance. Sweat beaded my forehead, and I lengthened my strides short of a power walk. When I reached the corner, white exhaust flowed from the red Edsel coupe, and its big V8 growled, ready to whisk me to safety. I jumped in the passenger seat, and Marge drove away at 30 miles per hour. 2 police cruisers screamed past us in the other lane. Now, we'd have to ditch this flashy car in case anyone noticed it fleeing the scene. Marge and I have been robbing banks since I got out of the Marines in '53. My posting to Korea separated us for 3 agonizing years. And when I got back to the States, we promised each other we'd never be apart again. Although we talked about it, we never got married. We both felt that a piece of government parchment would not make us love each other any more than we did. When our cash ran low, we'd find a suitable bank in a small town, make an unauthorized withdrawal, and live comfortably on the proceeds for a few months. As long as we didn't take too much or go to the well too often, the local cops forgot us, and the FBI had enough problems with organized crime to worry about a small-town bank robbery. We never hit the same town twice. Our life between jobs was quiet and measured, spending the winter in Florida, soaking up the sun like other tourists. We danced every Saturday night and fished the local lakes. Marge loved the fall colors, so we spent September in New England before turning south for the winter. I don't remember the name of the town in Minnesota when we ran low on cash. While Marge gassed up the car, I got us a table in the Moosehead Diner. Over the blue plate special of corned beef and hash, I decided I wanted to go fishing. Margie, I've been thinking, it would be a shame to be in northern Minnesota and not go walleye fishing. How about we rent a cabin after this job and go fishing for the weekend? Marge placed her napkin on the table and pursed her lips. Okay, Harry, but all the cabins are probably rented. I reached for her hand. This is the end of the season, and we'll find a cabin somewhere, just for the weekend. Then we'll head for Vermont. She squeezed my hand and ran her thumb over my knuckles. We'll need some bait. I hadn't thought that far ahead. We'll stop at a bait shop and pick up some minnows. Or, if you'd rather, you can watch me fish. She removed her cat's eyeglasses with the fake rhinestones and leaned over the table. Not on your life, Buster. You fish. I fish. And I'll catch bigger fish. Just you watch me. I finished my coffee, left a $10 bill on the table, and wiped the crumbs off my tie. I'm going to the little boy's room, and then to work. As I walked across the street to the Imperial Bank, Marge parked the car around the corner. We took the North Road out of town towards Canada and doubled back south on a series of gravel concession roads. Navigation was Marge's job. When we hit the interstate, we turned east towards New England. The cops must have figured it out, or got lucky. They'd had 10 years to learn out our pattern. When we turned onto the interstate, 2 police cruisers, nose to nose, blocked our path to freedom. Blue and red lights flashed, and cops leaned across the hoods, pointing shotguns at us. 2 more cruisers pulled out of a side road and blocked our retreat. Marge slowed as we approached the roadblock and parked on the shoulder. A cop with a bullhorn yelled, "Get out of the car and lay on the ground." Marge turned off the ignition and gripped the wheel with hands at 10 and 2 while staring out the windshield. "Goodbye, Harry." I wiped a tear from my eye. "Goodbye, Marge." I drew my pistol and shot her through the ear. Blood spattered the windshield and side window as she slumped on the driver's door. I put the pistol in my mouth and pulled the trigger. Just another nameless victim. I just spent the entire evening in the library reading romance books with him, wanting nothing more but to feel his lips against mine. In shock, I quickly turned my head to face her. Her black hair was flowing with the wind as she leaned against the bridge, staring out at the ocean. It was beyond beautiful. What? I managed to get out. "Yep. It was you the entire time." She turned her head slightly, meeting her alluring hazel eyes with mine. "We've been best friends for over 3 years now. We've gone from rivals to classmates to friends to best friends. And that's where it was supposed to stop. Nothing more, nothing less. But the more I got to know her, and the more I got to spend time with her, the faster my heart went. Every single time. And it was only until this very moment I figured out that I wasn't the only one who felt this way. A few minutes before, OMG, they found each other in the end. Now they'll get married and be together forever, she fantasized. It was adorable how oblivious she acted, as if the world was nothing but sunshine and rainbows. You realize they probably won't get together again, right? Stop being such a pessimist, Dill. They will figure out, and when they do, they'll be together again, and bam, true love at its best. I laughed. Together, we just spent 4 hours in the library, reading nothing but romance novels. It was supposed to be enjoyable, but when you have feelings for the girl that you're reading them with, it's hard not to feel a smidge of jealousy whenever the main characters do anything romantic. Ugh, I wish I could have the perfect love story. There it was. The wish that made my heart blast into smithereens. She had a crush one that was obviously not me. She always ranted on and on about him, how she liked him, but he didn't like her. I felt the exact same way. Well, maybe if you would just tell me who he is, I could help you, I say, trying not to sound anything but teasing. Even though she's everything I wanted, I still want her to be happy, even if it meant that it wasn't with me. Do you really want to know? She reeled, leaning towards me, trying to get me to back down. I played along. I really do, I teased, leaning closer. I could feel the butterflies forming in my stomach. Okay, how about this? I give you a bunch of hints, and with them, you try to eliminate and figure out who it is. Easy enough. She leaned even closer, waiting for me to accept the challenge. I'm about to have my heart broken. I know it, but I still end up learning closer to the point where our faces are only a few inches apart as I whisper, "Game on." He has brown, messy hair, and his name starts with the letter D. 10 minutes passed. We decided to walk home while playing our game. Over 50 possibilities eliminated. Only 3 left. That leaves Darren, Dwayne, and Dawson, I observe. So close. All right. Here are your final 3 hints. He's a bookworm with amazing grades. He's one of my friends. And he has an interesting past. I process the pieces of information, making 3 crosses, each through someone's name. Wait, everyone's eliminated then. There's no one left. Confusion rises as I go through the hints and the names, seeing if I made a mistake. Nope, there should be one, she softly says. At this point in time, we were already halfway home, stopping right in the middle of a bridge, surrounded by cherry blossom trees. I stop to think as she leans across the railing, facing the ocean. That's impossible, I comment, going through the names for the second time, still lost. Want another hint? Present, I thought. It was me? I'm in utter shock. Has it really been me the entire time? Yeah, She pauses. Suddenly, she spins around, facing me, eyes glassy. It takes a minute to realize she's crying. Hey, what's with the tears? I carefully ask as I slowly reach my hand to touch her soft, warm cheeks. I caress her face, stroking my thumb across her cheek, wiping away her tears. She doesn't respond. She just dips her head so I don't see. I carefully pull her head back up, trying to word what I want to say carefully. Hey, look at me. Slowly, her eyelids open, and her eyes, once again, find mine. I smile, knowing exactly what I want to say. You know, I've liked you since the moment I saw you. I just was too scared to admit it. Scared that you would reject me. Scared that you wouldn't want to be friends anymore. Scared for our relationship. Yet you still pulled up the courage to tell me, even if it might have brought upon rejection or humiliation. You always were the brave one. That got her smiling. "Really?" she asks, her smile getting bigger and bigger as I nod. "Really?" Our faces are only 3 inches apart. I look at her once more. She nods. I have the go. Slowly, I close the gap. Time seemed to stop. The only hint that it didn't was the wind blowing cherry blossoms all around us. My heart pounded louder and louder, feeling as if it was going to burst out of my chest. Every time she leaned in, I pressed harder, not wanting to let go. Her lips felt warm and soft, the only sensation I was able to process. The only hint that this was all real was the emptiness felt when she would slowly lean back for air. But once she came back, it felt like a dream once again. Slowly, I brought my hand to her hair and the other to her face as she rested her hands against my chest. Her hair was soft and smelled like coconuts. Slowly, I brought the hand on her face back to my side and to her chest. Softly, I pushed, applying a small bit of pressure. She leaned back and gasped. I'd finally done it. "What?" she uttered in confusion. She looked down, and the realization downed her. "Why?" Tears started spilling as she slowly started falling back. I caught her delicate body in one hand, smirking. "I'd give it another minute before you're gone. Any last words?" My parents are serial killers. Together, they've had over 100 victims. Once they lay their eyes on someone, it's impossible to escape. I was no different. Forced to kill as a child, tortured till I obeyed, became a force of habit as a teenager. I thought you cared. Why?" she gasped. "You thought you were something special, didn't you? Well, let's make sure we get this right this time." I leaned in closer, enjoying the moment. "You are just like the rest of them. I spent 3 years grooming this very moment. 3 years trying to get you to develop feelings for me, only so I could kill you in the most enjoyable way possible." I take a slow, deep breath in, a sense of happiness and satisfaction taking over me. This girl has been the hardest target so far, but I've done it. I drove the knife into her. She gasped, trying her best to stay alive, but it was of no use. The knife was deep enough into her heart to only last her a minute, tops. I gently lay her down and pull the knife out. She softly screams in pain. I get up, take one last look at my best work, smile, and walk away, spinning the knife, covered with blood in my hand. "Did you ever love me, Dill?" I stop. I only was able to get a few steps away from her before she screams those 6 words. I refuse to turn back, but I can't help but answer. "No, you're just another nameless victim. Murder in a dream." Halvar sat in his office, browsing the police file of suspects, and cursing his brain for not remembering anything regarding the incident. The doctors told him the blow to his head was severe. It gave him a concussion, after all, and that it might take time for his memory to come back, if it did at all. Hall, without turning his eyes from the computer screen, he waved a hand. "Come in, Siegfried." His assistant walked into the office, placing a hand on Halvar's shoulder. "How are you? Still can't remember anything," he said, scanning the faces of every known criminal in Norway. He recognized a few of them, having captured them himself, but none rang a bell as to whom might have killed two of his friends and placed one in a coma. "He's got to be here somewhere." "Hall, you should rest," Siegfried said, placing a cup on his desk. Steam rose from it, spreading an invigorating scent of coffee. "We are looking into every possible avenue. I have to regain my memory," he said, scrolling further. He had to. It was the only way. He must have seen the killer just before the hit on the head knocked him out cold. His mind held the only real evidence they had, the only evidence to help turn suspicion off of Halvar himself. Siegfried sighed and retracted her hand. "We talked to Olaf, the studio owner, again. He said he left the place early that evening and didn't see anyone but you and your friends coming in. Nobody else was scheduled for practice either. The single security camera caught no one else entering the building. That camera's position is awkward," Halvar said, rubbing his eyes. He hadn't slept in a day. He didn't like what sleep brought. The killer could have entered through the back or by the window. Did Olaf tell you about his back door? How he's too cheap to have it repaired? Anyone could enter. In fact, could the man himself be responsible? He did complain often about the noise of Halvar and his band playing, even though they paid to rent his studio for practice. Hall, I can't imagine how hard this must be for you. I know how close you were with them, how much music meant to you. I hope that Bjarka makes it, and I hope you get some rest." Halvar sighed and listened to Sigfrida's footsteps leaving the office. The cup of coffee rested on the desk, smelling heavenly. He turned to say thank you, but his assistant was gone. Instead, he noticed the pictures on the office walls, his formal detective license, a photo with the whole police department for Christmas 2 years ago, and a framed picture of him and his 3 friends playing live at a local festival. 2 of them were dead now, 1 in a coma. The result of some lunatic bursting into the studio and killing everybody. Halvar himself survived by sheer luck, it would seem. "I'll find out who did this," he thought, turning back to the screen. "And no law or moral code can save them from me when I do." He spent the rest of the night searching through the files, as well as his memory, both seemingly void of the information he sought. Eventually, sleep caught up with Halvar, and with it came the nightmare. Each night since the incident, he had been having roughly the same dream. It was almost as if his mind was trying to tell him through dreams what he couldn't remember consciously. Halvar got to relive the murder of his friends every night for the past 2 weeks. He got to see every bloody detail, but never the killer's face. That detail always eluded him, and with each dream, he thought he was getting closer to the truth. Each time, the nightmare would reveal a bit more of what happened. That was if his mind wasn't just making everything up out of trauma. In the dream, he was often in the killer's shoes, after all. But he could never see his face. This night, the dream started as usual. Right in the middle of it, and from the point of view of the killer. Halvar saw himself as the murderer, picking up his guitar and crushing his friend's head with it. They were in the middle of practice and were stunned at the sudden outburst of violence by the intruding killer. Before anyone could react, Halvar smashed the heads of all 3 of his band colleagues with his own guitar. Then the dream shifted, where he could see outside from himself. How he got hit on the head too, by a figure without a face. The prosecutor then ran away, and when Halvar wanted to follow, the figure disappeared into the shadows. Halvar woke up, sweating and breathing heavily. He looked around and noticed he had fallen asleep in his office. The place was dark, no light coming from the hallway. Everyone must have left already. He grabbed a pen and paper and wrote down everything he could remember from the dream, recording every detail. The drawer by his desk was filled with accounts from his dream, and he used them to correlate the event, searching for consistent patterns and hints. As incredible as it seemed, his dreams were the only clues he had. But he couldn't share them with his colleagues. They would never take it seriously. The killer used my guitar, Halvar murmured, comparing tonight's dream with the others. But the last thing I remember was playing on my guitar. Then, nothing. So, whoever did it, I must have trusted them to let them have my guitar. The evidence found at the crime scene clearly pointed at Halvar's guitar as the murder weapon. It had blood and tissue of all 4 of them on its body, all found on one side, suggesting that the killer used it as a club to repeatedly strike at each one. The guitar's body was solid steel and hard plastic, and it cracked under the brutal hits, but did not break apart, surprisingly. So the killer must have known how strong the instrument was, so he could perform precise strike with it and not have it break in the middle of his assault. That would create an opening for the others to defend themselves. The only person that Halvar would entrust his instrument to, and who would know so much about it, other than his band friends, was Olaf himself, the studio owner. Halvar even once took lessons from the man, who showed him a few tricks on the guitar from his heyday as a roadie. It wasn't rational to think that Bjarka would take the guitar, kill the other two, attempt to kill Halvar, and then knock himself out. How would he do that? And it was just as absurd to think that Halvar himself did it, as was the unspoken suspicion. How would he swing the guitar at himself, knocking himself out with it? The angles didn't match, but the blood and the concussion did. Somebody else must have been present there that night, and the more Halvar thought about it, the more he suspected Olaf. The studio was his. He had access to the camera. The band knew and trusted him. He did complain about the noise, but was that reason enough to attempt a quadruple homicide? Or was there something else? A form of jealousy against Halvar and the band? Olaf did say that he never had a chance to be in a band, but that it was his greatest wish. Halvar checked the clock. It was something past 3 a.m. He considered, looking at the photo of him and his friends. Then he left his office. Olaf's house was next to his studio. It was part of the same building complex, just on the other side, so the owner had privacy as well as quick access to the place. Halvar sat in his car, parked outside the man's house. There was a light turned on inside. Olaf was the one that found us, Halvar thought. He came into the studio and called the police. In the report, the man said he had heard shouts and how the music suddenly stopped. So he had gone to check. The more Halvar considered, the more sense it made. The man pretended to have stumbled upon the murder scene, to have an alibi. Halvar waited in his car, considering whether he should confront the man, considering if he could even do it. As he waited outside of Olaf's house, the pain in his head from the blow returned. Halvar took some painkillers and watched the window, wanting to catch Olaf in some act that would rat him out. In a whirlwind of thoughts, and with a headache pounding, Halvar must have fallen in a pill-induced sleep, as suddenly his mind was back at the incident. This time, he saw more of it. "That sounds terrible, Hal," Bjarka said, grimacing on the drums. "Are you sure you can play the guitar, mate?" Halvar ignored the remark and focused on playing the solo. They were working on a new song, and it was a pain to get it right. "Sounds to me like he's butchering somebody," Damus, the bassist, commented. "Must be the stress at work, I reckon." They laughed. Typical guy talk. Halvar tried his best, but failed. His fingers were just too slow. The solo too technical and complex. His mind was sluggish, indeed from stress at work. There was a dangerous killer on the loose, and they had finally gotten a lead. Halvar just wanted to relax and let go for a few hours with his buddies. But all he could think of was the brutality of the recent murders. "Hey, we're going to get something to eat," Bjarka said. "You want something, Hal?" "No," Halvar said. "I'm good." He just wanted to get the damn solo right. "All right then," Bjarka said. But don't you try and steal my roles when we come back. They left. Halvar kept practicing. Then Olaf entered the studio. Hey, mate, the older man said, wearing his long gray hair in a tail. Sound like you're having some trouble. Yeah, Halvar said. I can't do this transition here. It's too fast for me. Halvar showed what he meant by playing the part at half speed. Olaf nodded. I see. Can I try? Sure, Halvar sighed. He handed the man his guitar. Knock yourself out. I'll knock you out with my veteran skill, the man said, and took the guitar. The dream then changed to Halvar being in the killer's shoes and butchering everybody, until seeing himself in third person again, being hit by some man with no face. Halvar ran after the man, and this time he caught him in a corner. The man had long hair. Halvar jolted awake. He was sitting in his car, parked outside of Olaf's home. The light in the house had turned off. It's him, he thought, breathing heavily. He did it. Halvar got out of the car and walked to the studio entrance. He had the key, as he and his friends were regulars. It was the little hours of the morning, and there was nobody outside, not even a stray dog. Halvar unlocked the door and removed the police tape, entering the crime scene. He knew that the studio and Olaf's house were connected by a passage for practicality. Halvar used the light on his phone to make his way through the dark interior. If it really was you, Olaf. Halvar hurried through the passage, entering the man's living quarters. He'd been there once or twice when Olaf invited them over for a drink, building his alibi, plotting even then. Halvar crossed the living room and climbed the stairs to the man's bedroom. He didn't think of what his plan was. He just wanted to have a look at the man, to see his murderous face. As he came to the bedroom, where he saw the light coming before, Halvar paused. He heard weeping from inside. His heart pounded like a drum, and he burst into the room. Feeling guilt for what you did, the man, lying under the blankets, jumped up in shock. Halvar turned on the light and noticed he had taken out his gun on instinct. Olaf gazed at him with wide eyes, red, as if from crying. What? Don't deny it. You did it, Halvar shouted, his hand trembling. I saw you. It was you. The man's face was twisted in a mixture of shock and fear. What are you talking about? I saw you in my dream, Halvar said. You took my guitar, and the man was crying. There were candles placed on his windowsill, alongside pictures of Halvar and his friends. The two that had been killed had a rosary around them. He was grieving? What's all this? Halvar asked, pointing at the pictures. They were my friends too, Olaf said. Your band reminded me of when I was young. His gaze focused on the gun in Halvar's hands. You think I did it? It wasn't a question, but a statement. One in which Halvar wasn't so sure anymore. He looked into the man's eyes and saw sadness underneath all the shock and betrayal. I can't prove it, Hal? Olaf said, sniffing. But by God, I'm not the man you should be pointing that gun at. Who then? Halvar shouted. Who did it? Who killed my friends and nearly killed me? He pointed the gun at the man's head. Olaf began weeping. The guitar was in your hands when I found you. Yes, the killer wanted to confuse the forensics by framing one of us. No one else came or left the studio. Hall, what are you saying? Olaf glanced at the gun again, then at Halvar. Are you here to kill me too? Halvar balked. Olaf pissed himself, a dark spot appearing on the bed sheets. The man was genuinely afraid of him. Halvar suddenly felt deep shame, and he lowered the gun, running out of the room and out of the house. No, it can't be, he thought. If Olaf didn't do it, who then? He started the car and drove back home, where he took a bottle of scotch and began drinking. He demanded from his mind to remember all of it, to remember things clearly, without dreams and illusions. His head began hurting, but he didn't take the pills. They would only distract his mind. Halvar emptied the bottle and paced around his room until he collapsed in a corner and wept for his friends. Once again, sleep took over, his body and mind exhausted. This time, the dream picked off as his friends returned with the food. Where have you been? Halvar asked. They were gone for nearly 2 hours. Bjarka giggled like a schoolgirl. We went to get food. They all had red faces and were snickering like teenagers. Have you been smoking weed? No, Damus said. They snickered some more. Halvar sighed. We were supposed to practice tonight. You should chill, Detective Oyolf, their lead singer said. You can't play that guitar anyway. He turned to the other two. Hey, maybe we should cut his hair. If he can't play, then he's not a true metal fan and shouldn't have long hair. The three laughed, obviously talking gibberish, but Halvar, being frustrated by his stressful job, having to deal with murderers and psychopaths all day long, just wanted to lose himself in the music with his friends, but for some reason couldn't get the creative juices flowing, and had enough. Something snapped. He grabbed his guitar and began playing. The guys turned to him. Whoa, look at Hall. He's on fire. Halvar played the solo with fury. He struck every note on the spot. Yeah, man, that's the thing. Then he came to the hard part. He followed Olaf's instructions and sailed through it, racing to the finale. Seems Hall's been practicing while we were smoking. Halvar's muscles tensed as he got to where he always failed. He struck the notes, one by one, the pick flying over the strings. But his fury was too much. He broke a string, and the guys giggled. Halvar smacked Bjarka straight in his laughing face with the guitar. The man fell over like a chopped log. Then he hit Damus, who was too stoned to register what was going on. Halvar repeatedly hit the man's head until it cracked, and the guitar strings vibrated from the impact. playing a sinister echo. Oilof wanted to run away, but Halvar chopped him down by hitting his side first, and then smashing the man's head. Breathing heavily, feeling all his frustration boiling in him, Halvar screamed and head-banged into the guitar's body repeatedly until he collapsed to the floor, unconscious. The dream shifted outside himself, and he could see Olaf stumbling upon the aftermath. Mortified, Halvar jumped up on his feet as the doorbell rang. His fists were clenched, as though he still held the guitar, and he breathed heavily, confused. He was at home. He just woke up from a dream. Someone was at the door. Did I really kill them? Halvar ran a hand through his sweaty hair and walked to the door. He took one deep breath and opened it. It was Sigfrida, with 2 other officers by her side, Halvar's colleagues. "Hall?" she said, her voice painful. "Yeah?" he groaned. Bjarka woke up. "We have some questions." Fall of the stars. The heavens glittered with stars as the man silently drove over dirt and gravel. The 1,000 twinkling eyes mocking his desperation, muttering a curse under his breath. He slowed down at the rusty security gate at the entrance of the abandoned mines. To an ordinary person, it would be a half-broken gate, with just a couple of night guards sleeping their shift away. But then again, the average person wouldn't notice that the old equipment was strewn about almost too cleanly, or that the uniformed guards lacked an identity or a logo, or how a cold eye glinted from under the angled cap. A sleek gun pointed at any approaching vehicle. Private security. Good. He smiled. He'd expected nothing less. He rolled down a window and casually brought up his right hand to scratch his stubble, flashing them the tattoo on his arm. One of guards came over to inspect it, shining a flashlight right in his face. Satisfied, he nodded to the other one, and the gate opened. The newcomer growled at them as he drove past. The guards didn't blink. He took the car to the mouth of the mines and parked it aside a vintage piece, tossing the keys inside when he got out. Won't be getting out in this ride, that's for sure. He took one last look at the night sky. The stars still winked at him. "I'll show you, you damned twinklers," he thought. "And then you and your glowing arses can collectively burn the fuck out." He walked in and took the narrow elevator down, fixing a crick in his neck to look at the small black camera from the corner of his eye. The caged door opened into a tunnel entrance sealed long ago. Dim light and vulgar music blared from within. The tunnel widened into a narrow hall within, a despicable den of sin. Sellers had set up their wooden stalls on either side, sporting wares of all kinds, and catering to the needs of anyone bold or foolish enough to venture within. A place fit for the lowest of low-life scum, the kind who'd kill their own mothers for the right price. Everything in the hall was as good as Eden's forbidden fruit on earth. attracting a number of fools who'd end up unconscious in dirty alleys, pickpocketed at best, missing an organ or an appendage, if not sporting a slit throat at worst. The market and its dealers had been thriving in the sealed mine for almost a decade now, and he had no doubt that even the poorest of these merchants could have half the law enforcement in their pockets. He grunted. Hell, half the buying and betting crowd out here was law enforcement. Drugs, flesh, poison, weapons. They themselves would know where best to find any product being sold in the dark hall. The man sighed and jammed a hand in his pocket, pulling out a pack of gum. He looked it over with a frown and popped one in his mouth, tossing the rest in a makeshift stall with a wink at the seller. Let him pore over hours, wondering what's so special about it. He allowed the thought to bring him a dry chuckle, visibly relaxed now. He cleared his thoughts and covered the tattoo on his arm, lest it be discovered by someone who carried one of its counterparts. He'd thought about this evening too much to spend it in a petty black market fight, ignoring the purrs of a woman offering him the finest opium and a merchant sporting priceless stolen jewels. He made his way to the guarded room on the other end, where once again a discreet flash of his ink admitted him within. A flash of white greeted him on the other side. White tiles decked the room, save for the ceiling, which held a long mirror across the length of it. Across the table from him sat a red-faced man in a puff of smoke, cigar in one hand and a wicked blade in the other. A host of monitors beside him. Eye of the market. He leaned forward with his mouth split in a grin, rivulets of sweat running down his temple into his short-cropped white hair. Welcome, my friend. Mr. Rasut, I presume? I'm Gvadiskvi. We spoke via our mutual contact, who sadly passed away today. He took his visitor's hand, shaking it and nodding. Tragic, really. But you know how it is. I was hoping you'd stop by this week. Give us a chance to talk in person. Yes, a conversation has been long due. The man called Rasut replied, pulling his hand back. He remained standing. Now, my friend, we are friends, yes? Heh. I would offer you a cigar, but unfortunately, I do not yet know if you are a friend. Let's save the cigar for later, then. A question for now. I heard from our friend Rihaka you were taking an interest in the pits. You ask many questions, my friend. I must know now, because I dislike having to answer so many questions. Do you intend to partake in any way at all? Place a few bets, maybe indulge yourself in a match? Perhaps you'd like me to fix one for you, if only you're first to get you a little start? Say so. And we have a deal. I don't want to place bets, Gvadiskvi. His host's eyes narrowed, his smile faltering. Then you will understand. There are steps to be taken. We must be cautious about our little venture. Hee. You misunderstand, friend. He spat with a smile of his own. I wish to fight in the pits. The red-faced man barked a laugh, hurling his cigar across the room. Well then, my friend, here, we must drink to that, he shouted. I knew I liked you the moment you walked in. He poured out a strange green liquor in glass mugs kept behind his desk. Come, Mr. Rasut, we drink to victory, to living forever and battering one's enemies to death. The man called Rasut raked a hand through his dusty hair, clenching his fist at the drawn-out conversation. I do not drink before a fight. I will, however, take a whiff of your finest snow. Aye, it is a cold night, Mr. Rasut, and you are a bold one. He sniggered. My new friend, a man of taste. The man called Gwadiskvi obliged, immediately sending for his finest of the drug. He invited his guest to sit across him and talk. Come then, tell me. He grinned. What brings you here? Rasut tilted his head, starting. He was cut off. Please, do not insult my intelligence. I'm curious. The other man leaned forward. I truly am. Why would a man like you resort to this? He stared across the table icily. You don't know me. Don't pretend to. But surely someone such as you would have noticed the shadows trailing you, yes? A giggle. They've been watching you. The way you walk, the way you talk, the much concealed desperation in your eyes. Maybe I have a death wish. But that's not the half of it, my dear Mr. Rasut, is it? His watery eyes gleamed, sending a shiver of revulsion down the addressed man's spine. Having a death wish doesn't have to be personal, he said quietly. Oh, but coming here always is. His drug came, and he consumed it, courtesy of the house. He rolled his neck, grasping at his colliding thoughts and the clarity he now had. He pulled out the battered old pocket watch. A half hour still remained before he'd fight. The man called Rasut suddenly realized that he was talking and stopped, visibly shaken. He found himself staring across at his half-witless host, who beseeched him to continue. You were at the bit where you had the epiphany after giving up your old ways, when the fighting was over. Go on then. He considered for a moment, then shrugged. No harm done. Screw it. It wouldn't matter after tonight, anyway. When it struck me, he spoke through the piece of gum still in his mouth. How much the stars and I are alike. Gwadiskvi hummed in appreciation. How poetic for a man of your bearing. But do tell, how so? It's silly, really, but also true. He snorted a scoff, waving his hand airily. When they die, it's got to be a cosmic carnage. or no one knows cares, because otherwise no one would know when they die. The other man spoke through a puff of smoke as he lit another cigar. Much like battle veterans and mercenaries such as yourself, eh? Yes, and the natural way is too mundane. He tasted the word on his tongue, and how morbid it felt. So, I thought, why not die in a carnage and make people care? Care? Gwadiskvi went silent for a long moment. Do you truthfully think the people he... Enough to place bets, anyway, he retorted. The elder man undid a button on his shirt, rolling back his shoulders. Fair enough. You want to bring business to me? Who am I to refuse? My violent friend? A bolt of lightning went up his spine, and Rasut tilted his head. His host noticed it. Oh, come on. I've been running the pits for 9 years now. How many of your kind do you think I've seen? He huffed a laugh, thick smoke momentarily covering his face. I lost the count from not caring, Mr. Rasut, if I ever was honest. And you're simply another face in that pile. Men like you only like violence. Do you know why? He looked at him, very still, because it's the easiest thing to do. He continued, twirling the knife in his hand. So you go about your life, with violence as your creed, until suddenly, one day, you realize that you're all alone. So, what do? He said nothing, as the eyes across his bore into his own, with a cruel smile. You turn on yourself, becoming violent to life itself, hating your existence, and desperate for the bittersweet mercy the idea of death offers. Gwadiskvi looked into his eyes. And so, you turn to men like me. Like I said, Mr. Rasut, I recognize people like you. I think you'll find some kindred spirits in here this evening. Try to be merciful to them a little. Hee. He finished with a twinkle in his eyes, feeling uncomfortably vulnerable. He rode on a surge of blood and vaulted over the table in a blur, grabbing Gwadiskvi to whirl behind him, the knife now in his hand and held to his host. If you claim to know my motivations so well, then tell me, friend, he spat. Why don't I be a gentleman and grant you some mercy right now? The Mara laughed softly, feeling his own blade digging into his throat. I am trying to be polite, Mr. Rasut. But if you move that knife 1 inch closer to me, I will rip your heart out. Besides, we both know that you'd rather put on an impressive display. If you are so adamant on dying, Rasut released him, taking a step back. The pits are crowded tonight, Gwadiskvi remarked, with the eyes of a predator. Our old friend Rihak picked you a good night to fight. The fighting pits had been emptied, and a large area cleared for the closing event of the night. It was sparsely decorated, a handful of oil drums scattered to provide cover, and a few low-hanging bulbs as the only source of light in the wide hall. The crowd was brimming with nervous energy, with people shoving each other for the best spot to view the last fight without falling inside. Rules of the arena were clear. A single step in and you were fair game. The audience silently parted as its supreme benefactor glided through. Aitan par Gwadiskvi, the man who ran the pits, and every piece of low-life scum that haunted the mines. He raised his arm, holding a glass of exquisite liquor, and the world fell silent. "Greetings, children of the pits," he boomed. "I have a special night in store for you. The matches till now have offered but a slice of the excitement to come." He looked at those who would fight now, spotting them in the audience. No life is better than half a life. Tonight, the 6 individuals gathered in the arena share more than blood brothers do in a lifetime. They share this thought and are willing to fight to the death to prove it. They are the superior people amongst us, for these men and women have looked into the eyes of desire and stared it down. Riches or luxury, a good, quiet life, that's too much to ask of them. They live for the combat, and for the combat they willingly die. Most of them, anyway. He trailed off. The crowd cheered. The man nodded and continued. "We are graced with our weapons master, Mr. Black, offering us the chance to witness his latest wares in action." The crowd went wild, shrieks and whoops filling the air as the said man joined Gwadiskvi, completely decked in black, only parts of his face not covered by his wide-brimmed hat, or sunglasses visible as his lip burst in a cheery laugh. He waved. "Tonight, I bring to you," he started in a deep voice as the crowd went silent, "the only functioning prototypes of my latest gun. A tranquilizer coated with poison from deadly toads, and from my herb garden, highly flammable, although one wouldn't need fire for them to do their job. A slight graze could end a grizzly's life, to say nothing of our own. Up for auction next week." Murmurs streaked across the room as Gwadiskvi continued. "To make it more of a challenge, each of the fighters are equipped with a gun, good for 2 shots. No other weapons. Look closely, for if you blink, you may miss it. But mind your eyes. He. At a signal, 6 figures stepped in the cleared area. A lithe figure prowled in, carefully eyeing her opponents. The woman had a vicious smile plastered on her face, tracing a finger up her leather-like body armor. "My new guns will go well with the gear," the other woman grunted and flicked her the finger. A thin man slicked a tongue over his teeth, filed into sharp fangs, We'll see about that, doll. Two other men staggered inside, either drunk or badly beaten up recently. Rasut was handed his gun as he weighed his options. Oil drums for cover, low-hanging light bulbs, a stale piece of gum in his mouth, and a gun with 2 rounds of poison within. He nodded, taking a deep breath. In mortality lies my victory. In victory, a worthy death. Till my last breath, the carnage will not stop. He looked up in front of him. The carnage must stop. Tonight, then, death is life. A bell rang without warning, and the crowd roared as slivers of crimson flew all around, spraying up a shower of blood where they struck. He moved in a flash, ducking past a couple of darts and backhanding a light bulb. Those nearest to him flinched, momentarily blinded. Those 2 died first. He shimmied up behind the loud-mouthed girl with the protective gear, swiftly shooting at the unbalanced man across the room. He was dead before he fell, the dart buried in his eye. Grabbing her by the hair, he smashed her nose on the oil drum, and she cried out, instinctively raising a hand to her face. He snaked a hand into the side of her neck and snapped, snatching the gun out of her hands even as her body fell. He ducked as a barrage of darts flew past him. Pressing his back against a drum, Rasut peeked to find the other drunk or injured man already dead, while the man with the razor-sharp teeth wrestled with the bulky woman. Their guns tossed a few feet away. So much for that momentary truce. He spied the light bulb near him, still swinging. He grabbed it with one hand, pulling out the chewing gum with the other, and sticking it on the bulb, recoiling when the hot glass burned his finger. At least this will go quicker than I anticipated, he thought as the glowing bulb twinkled like the stars outside. Damned twinkler. He moved quickly, moving behind another oil drum as he fired twice at the one directly beneath the bulb, then tossed the dead girl's now empty gun at it for good measure. A thin spray or oil spurted from it, steadily growing into a tiny fountain, leaking oil that quickly spread across the floor. This caught the attention of the woman, who had finished crushing the throat of the thin man and pummeling him to death with her fists. She grinned, going for the 2 guns at her feet, even as he leaped, and the world froze. In that moment, Rasut saw everything. The horror on Gvadiskvi's face, the victory on the woman's, the final moments of the mine as he shot at the light bulb which burst apart, flames engulfing the oil, and boom! The next day, all the papers talked about the mine. Blow up. A gas explosion, they called it. The official report said that no one was around when it happened. No one got hurt. The cleanup crew moved quickly, doing multiple sweeps, and gathering what they found before loading the bodies in a truck to be taken away and incinerated. Yet no one noticed a single hand twitching still of the dead man who would still live, outliving his own carnage. No one noticed the mouth speak obscenities in broken whispers, cursing at himself, at the stars, and at life itself.